Side Hustle Show 132, 7 Days to a Profitable Business.
Welcome to the Side Hustle Show, where aspiring part-time entrepreneurs learn how to turn their side hustle dreams into reality. Because your 9 to 5 may make you a living, but your 5 to 9 makes you alive. And now, your host, Nick Loper.
What's up? Nick Loper here. Welcome to the Side Hustle Show, where it's all about ideas, action, and results. It's back to school season today, and we're going back to school with Dan Norris. This is episode 132, 7 Days to a Profitable Business. Dan is the founder of WP Curve. It's a WordPress support service. He's grown from nothing to a $74,000 monthly run rate over the last 2 years. He's also the author of the Amazon bestseller, The 7-Day Startup, which tells the story of his previous business failures, and how he's earned his first paying customers for WP Curve in just 1 week. Stick around to hear Dan's business idea generating tips, his contrarian advice to niching down, and how to market your business for next to nothing with his content strategies. Ready? Let's do it. If I'm the person sitting in my cubicle in my day job, the prospect of having a viable business by this time next week, that sounds pretty good to me. Maybe that sounds even too good to be true. So let's get into this stuff. Where does somebody start on a 7-day startup journey?
People waste too much time seeking permission from other entrepreneurs and assuming things are going to go one way, debating how good an idea is with their entrepreneurial friends, and not enough time actually launching something. So I wanted to put something together that was going to help people just forget about all of that and give them, I guess, if they're looking for permission, then give them permission to launch something quickly, even if it's not perfect, and work on it after that.
Yeah, the only real validation is somebody paying you versus somebody telling you you have a good idea.
I found, like, in the self-funded sort of entrepreneurs crowd, it helps for people to just be able to launch something and then just look at if it's working, if it's not working, and not spend too much time on is it valid or is it not valid, because most people are probably launching ideas that exist in some way already. And most of the businesses that start, they're technically already validated because, like, people are out there doing it already. And, you know, once you get caught in this trap of validated or invalidated, you sort of think, well, I've got to validate this idea. And you get too focused on that and not focused on, like, whether it's valid or not is not that relevant. It's just a case of whether or not you can make it work. And there's a lot of things that go into that. And some of it can't really be analyzed. I mean, it might just be timing or luck, or it might be your set of skills or the way you market things, or, you know, I mean, maybe someone else got there first. In my experience, it makes a lot more sense to just launch something and then look at whether or not it's working. And if it's not working, change it. If it is working, then do more of it, and then just try to follow that momentum, as opposed to, you know, this idea that there's either good ideas or bad ideas.
Yeah, one of my favorite lines from the book was solve problems where people are already paying for solutions. So along those lines, hey, I'm not necessarily out there trying to come up with the next greatest idea, but rather saying, hey, if people are already, what problem can I solve, basically? And so do you have recommendations for people who are sitting in that cubicle and saying, well, what problems can I solve?
You have to have, like, in the book, I talk about 9 traits of, like, ideas that represent good ideas for self-funded startups. And I think you can do your best to come up with a good idea before you launch. And there's some things you can pay attention to. Like, one of them is product founder fit. So if something feels like it makes sense to you to be working on, then that's probably a good sign. If it doesn't feel right to you, if it, like, doesn't seem like something you should be working on, if you're just doing it because you've seen someone else do it well, then that's not a good thing. So there's little things like that, or like how scalable is it? Is it a business that you're just going to be able to hit your personal limit of 10 customers and then not be able to grow outside of that because it's not going to be profitable if you pay other people to do it? So that kind of stuff is all, like, what I think about when I think about an idea to work on. In terms of, like, where to get ideas, that's probably more tricky. I think most people who have any kind of success in business end up just doing something that they're good at, or doing something that they're into for whatever reason, and they start looking around at what people are paying money for, and they look at how they could just be slightly different to what people are doing already. Like with WP Curve at my WordPress support business, lots of people have problems with WordPress. You know, sites are always breaking. People are always asking questions about WordPress. So I just had to think about, well, how do I solve that in a slightly unique way? And that's an example because I was into WordPress. I was into building websites for people. That was sort of what I was known for. So I was a good fit. And I just had to figure out a way to make it scalable. So that's sort of, to me, that's sort of normally how it works. People will find something they're into, like an industry they're into. They'll look around at different business models and they'll think, I can do something that people are already paying for, but I can put a little unique twist on it and do something to get attention and stand out and then build a business out of it.
One of the other 9 elements of great bootstrap business ideas is going after a big market, which kind of in combination with the scalable business models, a lot of people will preach, hey, do stuff that doesn't scale, right? Like you're just starting out. You don't need to worry about this right now. But one thing I want to talk about was tapping into a big market, which kind of runs counter to everyone else's advice to niche down, where in, even on this podcast, we talked about like, hey, you don't want to serve restaurants. You don't even want to serve sushi restaurants. You want to serve sushi restaurants in this one neighborhood of San Francisco. And niche down until it hurts, right? Like that's the advice. But there's this wisdom in saying, hey, if I want to build something big, we'll go after, the universe of WordPress users is what, like, 1 in every 6 websites in the planet. Yeah, like it's a huge
70
market.
70 million websites or something.
Yeah.
I just don't like the advice to niche down. I mean, I just think it's not good advice. Like, I think what people do, a couple of things. The first thing that do things that don't scale, I think that came from Paul Graham, who is like a big funded startup, like God almost. So I think like him saying do things that don't scale means build a company that is fundamentally scalable, but to get it going at the start, to give it a kickstart and a boost, do things that don't scale, to hustle at the start to like get that momentum going. So I think you can really easily misinterpret that advice to be saying like, don't worry about scale, but that is definitely not what he's saying. He doesn't show any interest in any business that's scalable because that's his whole job is to build $1 billion company.
Right.
But the niche down thing, I think people just take it way over the top. And I see people all the time, it's like, I'm serving this little niche. And, what am I doing wrong? How come I'm not making any money? Well, it's because the people in that niche don't have any money, and all of your marketing potentially get the attention of people all around the world, but hardly any of those people can actually pay for your service because you're so niche down. And I see that happen all the time. It can work. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but I'm just saying it's not the only option. I think you can definitely start something in a big market, and it's a lot easier to get customers. And especially if you're doing something like content marketing. My new book, Content Machine, talks about that. It's like, if you're going to get a lot of attention for your content, what's the logic between that and your business? Like, are the people who are consuming that content likely to become customers? Well, if you're putting out a lot of content about sort of entrepreneurship and you've got a little niche business that sells crafts or something, there's no logic there between the content and the business. Or the local option is an example as well. Like if you're putting all this great content out there on your blog, you've got access to the whole world. You've got like an Instagram account that the whole world can access, or you're doing some sort of marketing that the whole world can access, but you're only serving a little small niche local market for your services, then only a small amount of those people can become customers or even can refer customers. So it's like, it's all just wasted energy. And I see that happen all the time. And I think, to me, it makes more sense to start something in a big market where there's a lot of people already paying for solutions, and you just come in with something that's a little bit different in order to stand out.
So for those local companies, working their Instagram feeds and stuff like that, you would say, hey, why not go global versus why not just dial back your content?
Well, it really depends on their business. I mean, if you're like a local coffee shop, then it makes a lot of sense to be on social media and to be really good at that. But it's just never going to be as powerful. Like if you had a local coffee shop and you had like this massive like influencer on there who's got 1 million followers, and they share a meal from your coffee shop, then only a very, very tiny fraction of those people are actually going to follow you and potentially come in and buy from you. Whereas if you sell a product like that people can buy all around the world, that's a service or a software or even a physical product that you can send anywhere, then it's always just going to have way more traction. So I think, I don't know, I mean, maybe it's too simplistic, but to me, it just makes sense that if you're going to chase the real opportunity that we have now, which is like you can literally do things on a global scale without hardly any money at all, then it makes sense to go broader with your marketing and broader with your business.
Yeah, if you can capture even a tiny percentage of those 70 million WordPress users, you're in very, very good shape.
Yeah.
So I had an essay a few months ago called The Piggyback Principle, which kind of looks at these broad scale trends and say, these are opportunities to build businesses around, whether that's self-publishing, whether that's, the WordPress. I think I used WP Curve as an example in that post. And kind of these broad trends, whether that's towards minimalism, whether that's towards CrossFit or craft brewing or gluten-free food, all sorts of this stuff. Like what kind of, these big trends can you capitalize on? With WP Curve, what was the, first customer story? You say, okay, I have this idea, I'm going to put it out into the world. And like you say, hey, if something works, I'm going to keep doing it. What was the early indication that this was working?
Well, I had the year before I'd ran a business doing like analytics charts, like a software that summed up all your analytics and put them into charts. And it taken me a year to build that business.
I remember.
Yeah. And I got into $476 in monthly recurring revenue. And I was spending about $2,000 a month. So I was losing about $1,500 a month. And I'd run out of money. And with WP Curve, I emailed my list and I had 10 people sign up in the first week. And it just so happened to exactly equal $476 in monthly recurring revenue. So that, to me, I was like, if I get 10 customers in the first month, then that's going to be 12 times better than my last effort. I would just always have the mindset that like, it doesn't matter so much how many I get initially. It's going to matter how much I get going forward. Like, and it's the same with, I just launched the 7-day startup community and I had 35 people sign up in the first 3 weeks on annual plans for this thing. But to me, I won't know if it's successful until I get to month 1, month 2, month 3, and just see if it's growing each month, especially with monthly recurring revenue. So with WP Curve, I was like, okay, I want 10 customers in the first month, and then I just want to grow at 10% a month after that. So, one the next month. And, well, I actually want more than 10%, but I was like, well, let's see if I can just add more each month. And eventually that compound growth is just going to turn it into a business. And I ended up getting exactly 10 in the first week. So that sort of indicated to me, this was a lot more successful than I would hoped it would be. And it just kept going. I got about 10 a week for the next 2 years.
Yeah. Hey, I'm on to something here for sure. Now you're the content marketing guy, but the beef against the benefit of content marketing is that it's inexpensive. Anybody can do it, right? Like the cost of production is very low. But the beef against it is it's like really slow, or it can be really slow, or you can just keep blogging until you're blue in the face and nobody ever.
Well, I mean, if you do anything incorrectly till you're blue in the face, then it's not going to work. So I think, if you could do paid ads really badly for 10 years and not have any success and wonder why, and then blame paid ads as a strategy. But I think, like in the book, in the Content Machine book, I talk about a lot of stories about people using content marketing well. And one of the main points of the book is that it definitely helps to do something consistently over the long term, but it is also possible to get much better results with content if you really tap into something that is needed. Again, just like entrepreneurship, like the example I use in the book is I've got a company, Black Hops Brewing, which is a craft beer business. We've done about 15 blog posts on that blog, and it's led to 6 figures in investment, invitations to conferences in Melbourne, loads of customers, beer blogs have written about us. All the biggest beer blogs in Australia have written about us and interviewed us. We're building a brewery 6 months after doing our first homebrew because of all the attention we've gotten from the blog. And we've only done 15 posts on there. And to me, that's not doing something for 10 years and waiting for results. And it's not really leveraging my existing network too much either, because it's a totally different community. And that's pretty powerful. I mean, I don't know what kind of paid advertising strategy you could get for that in, the space of a couple of months and not spending any money. So I think if you can tap into something, if you have a vision for what you want out there and create something that other people aren't creating so you can really differentiate and stand out, then content marketing can be very powerful. But if you just copy what everyone else is doing and just intend to do it for 10 years until you get results, then it's definitely not going to work. Those
are some very impressive results for the brewery business. Another one that comes to mind is lead pages. They're very, very effective in, doing their podcast, their webinar, like they're just all over the place, like showing people how to build their email list, right? And it's like, oh, by the way, you can use our software if you want, but you don't have to. But here's the buy button if you do. Well, I mean, they do have like $10 million in funding or something. Now they got funded, but before they got money. So that definitely helps. But yeah, no, their content early on was really good. And that
I just like in the book, I talk about this monetization logic where you're putting content out there and you've got a business that's separate from that. And there's just like perfect logic between the two. And that's a perfect example of that where you're educating the world on how to build email opt-ins. And it just so happens that you've got software that helps you build your email list. And the same as SEO Moz is an example I use in the book. Intercom is another example. They educate software companies on how to improve their business. And they just so happen that they have software that software companies use. So if you can get that fit and logic perfect, then it can be really powerful.
Yeah, exactly. Like Chris Ducker is putting out content on, how much should you pay your virtual assistant? How do you hire people in the Philippines, right? Oh, by the way, if you want me to do it for you, I have a service that does that.
Exactly. I mean, he's written the book on outsourcing, and it's no doubt that that's going to be a good thing for his business because he happens to have a service where he can outsource.
Right. So not just creating content, but creating like the super useful content that's related to to what your target customers need to learn or what they need to know, and that crucial connection piece, that monetization logic is the piece that I think a lot of people miss out on. Now,
yeah, I just want to pull you up on that though, because another thing I challenge in the book is are you actually creating content for your customer? And a lot of people say, pick this avatar and create content for this avatar. And I think if I think about the beer stuff, like if we were to take that approach, we would say like Jim, the bar owner, wants to buy our beer. So we need to create content for Jim. So we write a bunch of stuff about bars and try to get his attention. But in reality, that's not what we do. What we do is we create content for a community, the whole craft beer community, investors to other brewers, to bar owners. And we become relevant in that community because we're putting something out there that stands out. And whether Jim reads blogs or not, he probably doesn't because he's too busy. He's going to find out about Black Ops because people are going to come into his bar and talk about it. He's going to get on Facebook. And when he does that, our content's going to be there because people will be sharing it. When he goes to Google, we convince Google that our content is and our website is better than the others in the industry. So I think people really fall into a trap of creating content just for a customer as opposed to a community. And I think there has to be a logic there. But it's not the same thing as saying, I'm going to have an avatar and just create content for that avatar. I think you're better off having a logical situation where someone will read the content and either become a customer or become an advocate or share it or help you in some way within that community, but create content for that community. And a lot of the people that read our blog are not customers. Like a lot of the people are probably home brewers. We'll probably never sell anything to them, but they're some of our most powerful advocates. And, becoming relevant to home brewers means that we're going to become relevant to our customers, investors, and bloggers and everyone else in the industry.
I gotcha. Do you do anything to, now you've got the luxury of a built-in audience email list, but when you're first starting out, what's your process like to spread the word about this? Like, say you write the world's most epic blog post and you put it out into the world, and I think everyone's fear is now it's crickets. It's no one's ever going to see this. So what do you do to kind of get that initial ball rolling on it?
Yeah, as part of the book, I have a bunch of different frameworks that we use for different things. So if people can go up to contentmachine.com/resources and grab all of those. One of them is a promotion template. So what we do is at the end of when a blog post is written, we have a template that the author fills in, whether the author is yourself or it's a guest writer or someone else. And then we have an admin team that executes a whole bunch of stuff for that blog post. And we don't do anything too aggressive, but it's just sort of like people mentioning the article and tweeting them, asking them to share it, putting in click-to-tweets into the post, putting in Canva, social media graphics, sharing it on social media, all of that kind of stuff. When I was starting, I did a couple of things, and I talk about these in the book. One is I posted more on other people's site than I did on my own site, and that's a way you can build your audience because the more you increase the new traffic, like if you go into Google Analytics and see how many people are hitting your site that are new, the higher that number is, the more conversions you're going to get because these are new people to your site and they haven't seen your stuff before, and they're potentially you can build that audience that way. If you're just serving the same audience, you might find that you don't have enough new people coming in. So you can write on other people's site, and the other thing you can do is I did a lot of roundup posts and mentioning other people. Even if I was doing a podcasting guide, I would interview a bunch of podcasters and get their feedback on it, and then reach out to them, ask them to share it, tweet them, mention them in the tweets, and sort of leverage their audience that way. And most people will share something. Podcasters do this all the time. If at the end of this podcast, you don't email me and tell me about it and, give me a link to share of it, I'll be surprised because that's kind of the done thing. And it's definitely a way to get to a new audience.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I like that, that framework for getting that. We'll link that up, contentmachine.com/resources. We'll link that up in the show notes for sure.
The other thing there, though, is I think traction is something that it's hard to force traction on something that's fundamentally like not that good. Like if you're putting content out that's not differentiated, if it's really not that great, if it's not solving a problem that someone else hasn't already solved, if it's not really needed in your space, then, I mean, you can spend so long pushing it to get traction, but it's not really going to get anywhere. If you've got content that, is really needed and people really like it and no one else is doing it, then it's just going to naturally, get that momentum more so than the alternative. So I think like you can talk about boosting traction until you're blue in the face, but at the end of the day, good content is going to naturally take off much more than bad content that's not differentiated and not needed. So you're better off focusing on how do I really understand my community? How do I really understand what they want, what they use, how I can make them use my stuff more and create, differentiated content that they really need, rely on them to share as opposed to like boosting something that people don't really actually like.
Yeah, that's a really important note to make. Like, hey, create something that's actually good, that's actually worthy of being shared and read and watched or tweeted or whatever. I wanted to walk through a couple kind of 7-day startup examples that I've seen. So WP Curve maybe is the flagship one of these, but I've seen people try to iterate this or try and pivot this to a bunch of different kind of service-based businesses, and especially on kind of this kind of low barrier to entry recurring revenue model. One of them that I've used in the past is called Copywriter Today, which is unlimited copywriting services for, I don't know, they have a bunch of different price tiers for will help you create all this content that you need for your content marketing. Design Pickle seems to have taken off really well. And then just recently, Jan Cook has put together an A/B testing service as a monthly subscription called ABCD Impact. Do you see opportunities outside of the internet marketing realm, or is this just like, this is the world that I'm in, so these are the ones that I see?
Yeah, there's heaps of stuff that's happened. So Design Pickle, I think, went from 0 to 30 grand a month in about 6 months.
Wow.
There's definitely people in my community that have started businesses that are multiple 5 figures a month. There's more than a few of those. There's copywriting, editing, design, development, support. There's a whole bunch of different things people have done. There's also other projects where people have just used the framework to launch something when they've been stuffing around for months or years and not launching, and they've just used it as permission to do that. And they haven't created a business that is like a WP Curve-like business. They might create something totally different. But yeah, I've got a Facebook group and a community of people. There's actually a Google Doc that we've got that lists lots and lots of businesses. I think maybe like 40 or 50, but there's definitely hundreds at least that I know about of businesses that have launched. I mean, not all of them work, of course.
Right.
A lot of them don't work. A lot of the businesses I've launched don't work.
You and me both.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in terms of whether it would work outside, I mean, I just honestly just think there's so many opportunities. Like, I just think you could apply this way of thinking to just about anything. I think the opportunities outside the online space are probably even bigger. Like, if you can do something in a local, I don't know, like local food delivery or like something that's more like an in-person type business, but leverage the web for something or leverage software for something or work towards building some software for it or, leverage social media to market for it. Like, I think that kind of stuff could be so powerful. Part of the 7-day startup is like looking at the top startups and that's that sort of funded startup world and trying to figure out like what us everyday entrepreneurs can use from that world and apply. And, thinking of yourself more as a startup than just a local business. And I think any kind of business that starts, if you're thinking locally, then that kind of mindset can benefit you a great deal, even if you don't sort of copy WP Curve, if you like.
Yeah, no, I've seen some of the former or some of the past Side Hustle Show guests have a lot of success with this, saying, hey, I'm not going to go after 100 clients at $50 a month. I'm going to go after 10 clients at $500 a month, right? I'm going to provide that like this high touch local, local marketing service, local SEO service or something like that, where, it's just kind of getting over that inertia, like you said, to stop having and hawing over what the idea is and like go out and sell it to somebody, go out and make that find that first customer.
Yeah, that can be useful, especially if you're like, okay, I need to make $3 grand a month so I can support myself instead of having a job. Then it can be useful to say, okay, I'm going to break that down by just getting 3 $1,000 a month clients or 6 $500 a month clients. Mm-hmm. And that can be like a really motivating thing. It's like, well, all I need is 6 customers to be an entrepreneur. But I'd also warn against that a little bit, because I think when you go higher price, it sort of rules a lot of people out. And it's sort of standard advice that you should put your prices up. But I think if you're going to build something that's sort of big and impactful and scalable, I think most of the businesses that I look at like that are generally lower priced broader services. So I think there's a bit of a compromise there. Like you can charge 10 grand a month, but the client's probably going to want to have just you doing it and going to be really reliant on you. And it's going to be super high touch. And, you're not going to be able to just sign up people by putting a blog post on there or a post on social media or an email funnel. So I think you do compromise a little bit the more you put your prices up. But I think there's a balance. I think it'd be cool to do, like, to start out, if you really want to just leave your job and start a business, just have that mindset that, okay, I want to get to 3 grand a month. And I'm going to do that by doing stuff myself, by getting 6 clients at $500 a month. And then just like kill that deal and then bring in a lower end deal where it's more scalable, it's more profitable, and you can get other people to do the work, and then gradually build that up once you launch.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I see people doing this. Somebody just sent me a guest post pitch, and it was like, hey, I was just, spending, me and my sister were just spending, years, contemplating these different business ideas. Then one day we got brave and we put an ad on Craigslist for like a house cleaning service. Like, hey, I'm not necessarily passionate about house cleaning. I didn't see myself doing this as a full-time thing. But you know what? I went from idea to customer in about 2 hours. And it was just like, this was the mindset shift. Like, okay, now I can do it. Somebody's going to pay me money outside of a traditional day job framework. And then I can use that kind of confidence that I build and, translating that into, whatever. And maybe there's a house cleaning subscription. So I'm sure that's like how most maids operate, right?
Well, I mean, I use an example in the book called Tidy.me, which was Stacey Jacobs, who literally started this like house cleaning service in a week by just saying, okay, I'm going to interview a couple of cleaners on Gumtree, which is like Craigslist over here. Okay. And she just got a couple available and then just went out and dropped flyers in a nice suburb in Sydney and said, it's $25 an hour, fixed price house cleaning. Got customers, had suppliers on one end, and literally just started this business. And probably 4 or 5 months after she'd raised $750,000 to build her business. Wow. Yep. Yeah, she just needed cleaners to do it. She didn't do it herself. She found cleaners on the equivalent of Craigslist, and then she just dropped flyers to get the first couple of customers. Just hustle, just like going out and getting clients, getting people to deliver the service and building that marketplace. That's why I like that example, because people sort of assume that a lot of times marketplaces are examples of things where like you can't start them without loads of money. So to just start that in a week and get those first couple of customers and go from being a wantrepreneur to an entrepreneur is pretty cool. Yeah, I like it. Well, Dan, thanks so much for joining me, everyone. Check out the Content Machine book. We'll link that up in the show notes, as well as wpcurve.com. And we'll wrap things up with your number one tip for Side Hustle Nation. The foreword of my book is, so not the foreword, the slogan is, you don't learn until you launch. So my tip would have to be that you just have to launch something and stop listening to all podcasts except for this one. And stop listening to talking to all your entrepreneurial friends about your amazing ideas. And just get out there and launch something and look at the traction afterwards, rather than making so many assumptions beforehand. So true, so true. Dan, thanks so much. Have a great rest of the day. We'll catch up with you soon. Cool. Thanks for having me. This edition of the Side Hustle Show is brought to you by Lead Pages. Side Hustle Nation is about 10 times bigger than it was just last summer when I finally bit the bullet and bought Lead Pages. I know the last thing I wanted was yet another monthly subscription commitment, but the results have committed me from a very hesitant buyer to a year later to be an evangelist. This software just makes my life a whole lot easier and has helped drive some awesome results that have paid for itself many, many times over. So when you're ready to make the investment, use my affiliate link at sidehustlenation.com/leadpages. Forward me your receipt, and I'll shoot over a copy of the exact step-by-step process I use the software for. Sound good? sidehustlenation.com/leadpages. One of the examples we used in this episode about their excellent content marketing. Okay, so my top notes from this show. Number one, focus on a unique offering in a big market where people are already paying for solutions. Number two, content marketing can work in just about any industry, provided the content is actually good. And number three, you don't learn until you launch. So it's time to launch. All the show notes and links are over at sidehustlenation.com/132. A couple iTunes shouts before we wrap things up.
These are from the month of July. A 5-star thank you to Aaron from Skate O'Clock. Thank you, Aaron. Mark Bologna. Jeffrey the Bold. Thank you, Jeff. Real High Hop. And Chris 162024. Thank you guys so much. Chris says he wants to hear more about affiliate marketing and SEO in 2015. I think that can be arranged. We'll work on that for you. Mark says, I suggest episode, if you're just starting out, I suggest episode 85 with Scott Oldford, episode 87 with Brian Harris in the public coaching series, which you can grab at sidehustlenation.com/PC. Thank you guys so much for that. If you guys have found any value in the 130 something episodes so far, we'd love to get a review from you as well at sidehustlenation.com/iTunes. We'll get you there. If you are outside the United States, send me a note, because I only see the US ones unless I'm specifically digging for another country. If you're outside the US, shoot me a note, and we'd love to check those out as well, and give you a shout out on the air. Now, we've gotten a couple notes from listeners who downloaded the new Jabbercast podcast player app, and they're loving it. Head to shs.jabbercast.com to check it out. SHS for Side Hustle Show. You'll find enhanced content for the Side Hustle Show and many of your other favorites there. For some reason, my iPhone, like my Apple podcast player app, keeps crashing my phone, and so I'm very happy to have this Jabbercast app as a replacement, and I think the interface is better too. So thank you so much for listening this week. Until next time, let's go out there, make something happen, and I'll see you in the next edition of the Side Hustle Show. Hustle on.
Thanks for listening to The Side Hustle Show at www.sidehustlenation.com.